Recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, this is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. This is as bad a case of the waste brains as I have ever seen. I'm Anthony.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Jim.
Welcome to issue number 257 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast. Each and every week, we meet here to talk about comic books. On this week's show, we have a club discussion for our ongoing series here of Once Upon a Time at the End of the World with issue number 4. As a reminder for upcoming club discussions, very soon we'll have Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer number 1, which is currently out, Slowpoke 2 from Kickstarter, which I'm getting my copy in the mail as we speak, The Punisher number 10, Berserker number 12, It's Jeff number 1, and of course future issues of Once Upon a Time at the End of the World. After we cover issue number 4, we're going to dive into the weekly reviews. That's where we go back and forth, talk about the books that we've been reading, whether they're new, whether they're old. We're going to talk about them there. Then over in the news segment, we are going to do part 1 of 2 of our previews preview, and that is for the March catalogs. And we are going to cover in this episode the Marvel and DC catalogs for products coming out in what month are we on here? May and beyond. So yeah, we are moving right along as we are pre-ordering comics for the start of summer. But here we are with our club discussion, Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, issue number 4. Here is the synopsis. The apocalyptics begin. But it isn't fun and games. The Wasteland Rangers won't let Mace, a rival suitor for Mezzy, go without competing to death. The stakes are high as Mezzy's close connection with the Rangers' chiefess is revealed, and Mace seems out of his league. But there's more than one way to save someone. Yeah, that synopsis almost sounds like it's for the next issue, but I remember this was the issue 4 synopsis. This is by Jason Aaron, Alexandre Tefenki, Lee Loridge, and World Design. All right, this is our post-apocalyptic series or current apocalyptic series that are in the thick of things as our 2 main characters of Mace and Mezzy who met. You got one who is an ex kind of ranger, kind of from the scouts type of character. She's the one that is out there, a warrior, a forager, surviving. And then you have Mace, who is kind of holed up in his tower. He's got an ongoing story that we just get little by little every chapter about what had happened with his parents, but he's been recording messages and just kind of basically living in this giant tower, Home Alone style. He's got all these fun things going on, but the second that Mezzy came to his door, he was excited to go out on an adventure, and we've seen them out there and coming up into some troubles, and especially with the last month's issue in which these Rangers are basically still tracking Mezzy down, and kind of left our main characters in peril. As we jump into this issue, the overall overview, we get a little more backstory on Mezzy and how she had left the Rangers there, the Wasteland Rangers. We find out more about that. We get a couple more messages in the past sending over to Mace's parents. We get a nice little diagram of some merit badges. Find some dark history about these Rangers and the chiefess, and then a lot of tragedy towards the end. There's a lot that really happened. So that's just kind of the overview here. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about this book here, kind of go back and forth, talk about likes and dislikes. Jim, if you don't mind, feel free to jump in and let us know what you thought of Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, number 4.
This is continuing to be a really good book. It is evolving every issue. It's just getting deeper and grittier and adding another layer to the depth of the story and what's involved. And at first it seemed like kind of a sweet mismatch romance story in the apocalypse. Then you get this darkness of this strange other group that's hunting. Then third issue, we enter with a lot of violence, and it becomes a little more gruesome. And in this issue, they take it to another level again, and they actually bring the issues of sex between these teenagers into the story. And it's and it's not prurient. It's like done in a natural kind of way that they talk about it. Although these rangers are very anti-progressive, I would say. They have very old school, very strict morals, but they don't have it based in any traditional religious sense. It's just based on basically that's wrong because we said it's wrong, rather than any moral value other than that. So, and they give the girls who have a little kiss are really punished for it, and the one ends up dying because of it. So it's that kind of organization, and Nessie is somehow driven out and somehow run away from this organization because of it. So although she does not seem to be completely innocent in her activities regarding what's going on there either, because she had the opportunity to help somebody and decidedly did not help them.
Yeah, we're
I don't know if you want to cover that too much, but
yeah, we're hearing about this oasis that is in order to kind of get away from these wastelands, and these rangers are talking about all the sins basically that led to the destruction of the world, and but yeah, there was a little message there because we get a little flashback of in the opening of the book with Jenny and Mezzy, who shared a kiss, and with Jenny being the older one, is the one that took the punishment of. Am I seeing this right? That maybe she kind of had to retake the oath, or a cleanse to what?
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and basically jumping into this dark lagoon, as they call it, and but there was a little underwater message that just gets you know, uh, smaller and smaller to read, but she does give a little message off to Mezzy of saying, Mezzy, don't go to the oasis. And yeah, the moment you're talking about has that opportunity of this old ranger who is basically ventured out to find the directions to this oasis. And it's interesting when Mezzy comes in contact with this old ranger, and yeah.
There was a very light moment at that point in the story where the old ranger appears floating in a boat with his intestines spilling out all over.
Yeah.
And he says, tar shark got in the boat. Nothing that a bit of duct tape won't fix.
Yeah, that's it's a simple fix there, and I don't think he was at all expecting having someone with a torture merit badge maybe at hand what's to come. Yeah. Katie, feel free to jump in. Thoughts on issue number 4?
Sure. So, Jim, I thought you summed it up really well. Those are some good ideas. I will say emotionally, I didn't like this one as much because it's pretty sad. But in terms of storytelling, I thought they did a lot of things right. I'm probably one of those woke people that's destroying the world, but I think they should have put a trigger warning on here for talk about suicide. Although, granted, it is an M-rated comic, but so yeah, I'm one of those woke people that's ruining the world. It's all my fault. I'm sorry, everyone.
Well, I'm in that
What else?
category too, so shame on us.
I mean, by their standards, I think probably everyone is pretty woke. So something I thought that they did pretty well in this comic is that we learn more about this cult, and I do believe it's a cult. And it answered a lot of the questions and a lot of the ideas that the club has been, talking about throughout these past few issues as we see more of the Rangers tracking and chasing down Mace and Mezzy. So I thought that was very good. It helps us understand why Mezzy is so intense and extreme in everything she does. And actually, it seems like compared to the Rangers, she's pretty chill. What else? So definitely the psychology of extremism, like the idea that they're equating like one simple kiss between teenagers to like all of this like bigger overarching stuff. Most of it's not even connected at all. Was, I thought an interesting way to kind of show the mindset and the attitudes of these people, which is that, every sin is equal and apparently they're all equally horrible. In a way, I thought the time when Mezzy came upon I think it's like the first forefather, in a way, I was going to say self-defense, but it's clearly not. She's coming upon a guy who's dying. But it does feel like revenge that has been earned for the death of her friends. Were they dating their girlfriend? That's, that's a pretty brutal cult that makes a teenager go swimming in a toxic lake dump and be like, oh, well, if you don't survive, you weren't virtuous enough. Like, yeah, okay, that's really what's going on there. What else did I think was cool? So we got to see some great character development from Mace. Like the first few issues have really been showing him as this very like gentle soul, very innocent, very sweet, but like he's got a hidden steel to his spine. Like he's like, you know what? Like I'm gonna cry and scream, but I'm still not going to give you Mezzy. And he's then, because it's very clear he's very smart and very creative and inventive. He's now trying to think, well, how can I play this game so that, I can survive for just one more day? And then he starts quoting their sacred book, which I thought was pretty cool, and excellent character development. Incidentally, a great use of showing, not telling. So rather than telling me that Mace is smart, you're showing me that he's smart. I will also say I don't trust the cult leader that they keep calling her Ma throughout this. I do not trust her because she's like, oh, well, we tracked you and we burned down, the skyscraper building. It's all gone. I think she's lying. I don't believe that they did that. And I think there's definitely something else going on here that I'd like to hear more about. And yeah. So like I said, emotionally, it was pretty sad. But in terms of storytelling and development, I think they did a lot of things right. We got to see our characters grow, learn more about this world, and set up the next few issues as to whether or not there is an oasis or not, and what awaits at this oasis. I have some ideas that maybe it's not all as wonderful as they think it's going to be, but I guess we'll see. Oh, one other small detail I like, there was a little map of their compound and it said communication room powered by rats. And I like the idea that these little rats are running on hamster wheels to power all of their communications. That's kind of goofy to me. Overall, another solid issue. And I would say now's maybe a great time to pre-order the trade if you would like to pick it up for yourself. Anyway, that's my review.
Yeah, it's interesting. And now one of the big moments I was going to mention that just really hit me with my jaw dropping was the reveal of the burning of his home in the tower. And it's interesting you said that, that maybe that she's lying about that. And I'm thinking like, oh yeah, maybe these are images that are in his head, as he's hearing this. So that's
what I interpreted.
That makes me look at it in a different way. And I'm curious to see how that'll play out. But yeah, that was just some very horrific imagery there
Mhm.
and reveal of that. And then
Yeah.
the other one too, going back to when this Ma character was basically having Mezzy slap herself for every, she goes, slap yourself, Ranger, as hard as you can and tell me what ruined the world. Progress, diversity, indecency, gender nonconformity. Then it just, the list goes on and like just, yeah, there are the very powerful scenes in this issue
Mhm.
that just, yeah, really stood
Yeah.
out.
I think one theme that I like a lot in this issue is how they present manipulation, because I see so much of that going on here. And I thought that was very interesting and really, to me, it reinforces that this is a cult, which to me makes the story a lot more interesting. Yeah, actually, I'm glad you pointed that out about the depictions of the tower burning. I did interpret that as Mace was imagining that, and I have no evidence that it is or it isn't true. I just have like a gut feeling, because these are pretty brutal people, and I feel like they would do whatever to get what they want, including lie, cheat, and steal and manipulate and purposely play off like people's emotions. So that's just my fan theory, I guess. But we'll see. Very well done. It gripped the readers in different ways. So that is high praise.
I've always said that I was a storyteller's greatest customer because I always kind of live in the moment. I never like if I'm watching a movie, I'm never really thinking ahead, and so like I'm taking what we've seen as truth, but like you said, you have some suspicions on that, and that makes me look at it differently. So it just makes me more excited to see what that reveal is actually going to be, and yeah.
I love it.
Jim, anything else to add at all that you can think of?
Well, yeah, Katie mentioned the map and the
Hmm.
rats that run power the communication.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny that that communication center with the rats was right above
Yeah.
the protein room with the rats carcasses hanging there. But
Yep.
yeah, that was kind of another one of those cute moments.
Notice that
We
too.
kind of talked a little bit about the merit badges and the specific ones that they earn, which are some of them are just way out there.
Yeah.
I think one of them was masculinity or toxic masculinity or something like that. And yeah, there are some pretty unusual ones there.
Hmm. Agreed.
Yeah, that was, and I think this is just kind of strange that you mentioned it being cult, and I kind of agree with it being a cult, but we have the cult leader who is this old ranger that we saw a little bit, and the chiefess Ma, and the members of the cult are teenagers.
Yeah. I know. Isn't
They're
that
kids.
eerie?
Yeah, isn't that is especially creepy because there's no adults.
Hmm. Yeah, and like the running motif of like they're like Boy Scouts, like yeah, isn't that spooky? It's oh yeah. Now that you mentioned that,
Yeah,
that is messed up.
Yeah, there's like I said, yeah, the pace is moving on along pretty good, and just each issue has been just really good and just gets me excited to pick up the next one. So good, good. All right. Well, any other closing thoughts before we move on? All right,
issue 5, bring it on.
there we go. Yes, I think it's scheduled for the end of March, meaning we'll cover it sometime in April once we get everyone gets their issues in their hands here. And yeah, so the series continues to be very intriguing, very entertaining, and it was a great club pick overall. All right, and then once again, we got some future club picks coming up. The ones that we know are coming up within a week or two, depending on if we record, as long as schedules work out, is Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer special number 1, which is a continuation after we covered that mini series as a club discussion. So now there's one bonus issue, and then Slowpokes 2, the long-awaited sequel here. Other people have gotten their copies, but the tier that I had subscribed to had some extra items, including a little can koozie. So there was a little bit of a wait for those can koozies to be created and then now shipped out. So yeah, we'll be talking about those issues in the very upcoming weeks here at the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. But we have more to talk about here on this episode because we are going to jump over to the weekly reviews. And for those
Hey,
YouTube,
Anthony?
yes.
Since we have a smaller group today, I'm going to throw on one more book. I will put it in the club page.
Sounds good. Yep, I tacked on 2 more myself just because of that. So that is very much encouraged. All right. So if anybody here is watching the YouTube video, they see these thrilling behind the scenes creation of how this podcast works. The people on the audio, who knows when they're listening to this, because I am currently having issues uploading the audio to the Podomatic host. I've been messaging back and forth and nothing seems to be working. So thankfully we have this YouTube outlet to continue the podcast in this way. But if you are hearing this, who knows when this episode is uploaded to iTunes. Okay, we are recording once again. We are going to jump back into it. Here we go. Welcome to the weekly reviews. The first one I am going to kick it off with here. Something that I was very excited for after reading the first graphic novel, knowing that I'm basically buying all of them, as many as they make. I am talking about Mayor Goodboy, and this time he goes to Hollywood. The script is in, and Mayor Goodboy is going to the movies. Mayor Goodboy is starring in his very own movie, set in his very own town, Greenwood. Too bad some crooks are out to steal the show. Don't worry though, interns Abby and Aaron are ready to help out. With items around town going missing and pizzas being stolen, will the mayor be able to save the day and his movie before it's too late? This graphic novel series is done by Dave Scheidt, Miranda Harmon, and Lyle Lind. All right, big fan of Dave Scheidt, who branched off from the Oh Yeah Comics group. He's done some work over there. Has done some work with Scoop McMahon with their own series, and so it's one of those being like, yep, I'm definitely picking it up. But I remember seeing this in the catalog first, and if something's called Mayor Goodboy, that's just an instant sell. I don't care what the description is. And I absolutely loved that first one, so I was excited to see how quick a second one was coming out. This is basically an all ages kids graphic novel series, great for adults as well, because I found a lot of joy in this book. This is very accessible if you haven't read the first one, but I think I highly recommend for you to pick up both of them if any of this is intriguing. Mayor Goodboy is simply a dog who has become the mayor and has the helpers, the interns. And what sets this story up is basically there is a film crew coming in and saying, you know what, we need to make a documentary movie about the fact that this dog in this town was so well liked and voted and elected mayor. So while this whole overall storyline about them making a movie and everyone excited to help and tell their story and how they got involved with Mayor Goodboy, a lot of criminal activity is happening in the background. Businesses are being robbed. Like I mentioned, pizzas being stolen. All of this crime that's happening. So there's quite the adventure that they have to set out. In the meantime, there's just some examples here of our artwork from Miranda Harmon. But yeah, this series continues to be extremely fun. Has some good lessons. It's a perfect all ages book. I once again just highly recommend it. It's just a darn good time and always some good laughs. This is just love the format, these hardcovers, the size. It's just a definite good read, and there's always hope for more Mayor Goodboy, and that is definitely a good thing. So yeah, I highly recommend this. A dog is a mayor. I can't sell it any more than that. So that is Mayor Goodboy Goes Hollywood. All right, let's jump over to Katie. What you got for us?
All right, I have Seven Swords, number 1 and 2 from Aftershock Comics. It's by Evan Doherty, Ricardo Latina, Valentina Bianconi, and Dave Sharp. All right, this is a perfect Katie book. I am so glad I picked this up. Y'all, I found this in the dollar bin, and I'm like, oh man, I would have paid full price for this. So it is using characters from the Three Musketeers book, mainly D'Artagnan. And at this point, the other Musketeers are dead because Cardinal Richelieu, sorry if anyone speaks French, I'm completely murdering your language. Cardinal Richelieu has killed them all off. He's the main villain from the Three Musketeers. And D'Artagnan is on a quest for vengeance, and he's taken out bad guys left and right when he gets an invitation from a kind of secretive person that, let's see, he basically has to assemble a team. He's going to assemble the Avengers, except they are the 7 best swordsmen in out all of the land. And, some of them are pirates. We have Don Juan showing up. We have a nun, a warrior nun, as it were, an opera singer, and his rival, Cyrano. So we get basically issue 1 is introducing us to this whole cast of characters. I really enjoyed the color work in here. It was very pretty, I thought. They took use of a lot of reds and purples and plums, which I thought was quite nice. And at the very end, we see Cardinal Richelieu basically holding a black mass for his servants. And, if I recall right, it's been like 15 years. In the book, he was a Catholic priest, but in this case, it looks like he might be involved with some other religion or some more obscure parts of Catholicism. And yeah, that's issue 1. We'll jump right into issue 2, where now it's time to go recruit our team. And we are starting at a bar. And we are introduced to the story of Lucifer and how he fought a war in heaven against God, and he lost. And they're going off the version from Milton rather than the Bible. And anyway, which it would be worth noting at the time this story is set, Milton would have been way more contemporary. That's why it's important. And Lucifer's sword was broken into, and it's the only weapon that you could challenge God with and have any chance of winning. And we find out Cardinal Richelieu is after it, and he's been running all over the world, causing all kinds of murder and mayhem, trying to find the pieces of the sword. And then we go to a bar in Paris where Cyrano is entertaining these ladies and some tough guys, come and try and start something. And here we find out that he's the best swordsman aside from D'Artagnan, and they have a rivalry going on. And of course, there's a lovely sword fight, as there should be. Very much appreciated that. And then our 3 main characters team up, and they go to the opera to recruit the next member. And things look like they're going all right in this opera about this is me, Orpheus and Eurydice. And then some bad guys looking kind of like the Death Eaters from Harry Potter show up on stage, and everyone thinks that they're part of the play, but no, they're bad guys. And our group's like, we have to save them. And it turns out one of the main actresses in this opera is also a very keen swordswoman of her own. And they fight the bad guys. The crowd goes wild, and everybody takes a bow. And then it leads to recruiting the next swordsman Avenger, who is Don Juan, who is doing Don Juan things. I'm pretty sure this is an M-rated book. You don't see too much, but there are some naked butts, which are actually used to some pretty hilarious effect. So just decide if what your comfort level is for that. But if you watch anything on TV these days, you'll probably be fine. And anyway, the book ends with some more swashbuckling and sword fighting and getting into general trouble. And we find out that Don Juan's lady is a princess. So that was a heck of a way to end the issue. I really enjoyed this series. This is a perfect Katie book. We got ties into literature, always down for some sword fighting. Secret societies are a lot of fun. You can do a bunch of cool stuff with that. And D'Artagnan and the entire Three Musketeers story, I feel like, is such a great one for comics because it really is an excellent adventure story. You know, it's been interpreted many times, and I know it's been done in comics, but a really cool idea and a great way to extend those characters and do something beyond what we have seen before. Aftershock, in my mind, is pretty much always, I feel safe spending money on it, even if it ends up being like, yeah, I didn't care for the content. The quality is always good. Everything I like about this book, Aftershock does with all of their books: nice paper, thick covers, well-defined colors and lines, interesting stories. Check out Seven Swords or any other of Aftershock's titles at your local comics book shop. And that's my review.
Cool. And found in the dollar bin of all places.
Yup.
All right, here we go. Next one here is a long-awaited graphic novel pre-order that is just in. We are talking about Faye and the Moon. Faye, in mourning for her missing mother, sits night after night below the moon that her mother so loved. Then one night she discovers she can pluck the moon out of the star-filled sky. Back safe in her house, she holds it close, feeling comfort at last. But Faye loses the moon and finds that taking it has awakened ancient monsters, dragons, and more, who hunt for it themselves. Will Faye be able to reclaim the moon, find her own inner strength, and save the world from the eternal darkness? This is filled with fearsome monsters, fascinating lore, and vibrant illustrations. Faye and the Moon is a much-needed adventure story about overcoming despair through the powers of love and hope. This graphic novel is done by Franco, Catherine Satrin, and Sarah Satrin, also known as the Satrin twins. All right, Faye and the Moon. So I have been a longtime fan of Franco through Oh Yeah Comics and many more things. And it was within the last couple conventions at C2E2 when I was recommended to check out the booth for the Satrin sisters. They are twins, Catherine and Sarah. And I had highlighted them on one of our podcasts and bought some cool prints. I bought a cool print of Nessie. And then I also did, there's this awesome Wonder Woman one where we are Wonder Woman, and it just has a well line of diversified people representing as Wonder Woman. And so I love their work, and it was exciting to find out that they were going to pair up and do some comic book work. And and this graphic novel is here, both in hardcover and softcover. This was magical. This was a beautiful story, mostly focusing on a mother and a daughter. But yeah, it's got a lot of magic and lore and just wonder and awe. The illustrations and the coloring is just gorgeous throughout the entire book. It's just it's beautiful to look at. This book is littered with a lot of fun little extra characters. You've got Percival, who is this little bunny rabbit that attends to Faye, and a lot of fun little characters in there. But yeah, this story doesn't waste time to kind of jump right into the idea, into the story, the fact that the mother is missing, has gone missing, and as the synopsis said, talking about Faye reaching up into the sky and literally grabbing the moon. And I want to show off this adorable image of her hugging the moon in her bed at night. And it's the way that she can kind of feel close to her mother, who she still hopes is out there somewhere, but there is an overall mystery on what had happened to her mother. And there's also some mice characters that are a lot of fun that come in and out of the story. So yeah, it's really cute, very adorable, definitely very strong in life lessons and the importance of a relationship, in this case being the mother and the daughter, but just with family and parents and children in general. There are a couple scary elements when we bring in some of our dragon characters, so I'll show off a couple examples of that. But yeah, it definitely has a lot to offer. I was just looking to see if it was billed as like a young adult, or I'm not sure what the actual rating would be here, but I think the kind of danger and stories like that. I don't think it's any different than you would see in a Disney or Pixar type of movie. So it definitely gives that kind of feel for that kind of audience. So I would say all ages is probably pretty good. And if they're really young, this is definitely a story that one would read to the child. And but yeah, this is I was in for it the whole ride. I read it in a sitting. I would hope they would do more. It is very enjoyable as a story in itself. But yeah, this ever since seeing the Saturn twins art and meeting them at C2E2, I haven't done a lot of research with them to see if they've done other comic book work or if they're illustrators with print and if they've done animation, but their work definitely lends to that. I will be seeing them in a couple weeks to get this copy signed and most likely pick up an extra copy as I have someone that I'm going to gift that to that I think will really enjoy this story. And Franco's at C2E2 as well, so all three of these creators will be available. But yeah, they crafted a wonderful story. Franco has he's done a lot of these kind of, we talked about him many times, but he's done many different kind of one-off graphic novels and short stories and stuff, and he never fails to just make it very heartwarming. And yeah, it's beautiful. I love all these creators, and I hope that this won't be the end for all three of them to work with each other. That is Faye and the Moon by Franco and the Saturn twins. Check it out. All right, jump back over to Katie. What's next?
Okay, my next pick is called Carmina Beginnings. This is an independent comic from Daiwada Comics, and it is labeled a Filipino American mythology. I grabbed this at Golden Apple Comics in Melrose, Los Angeles, which, in addition to having lovely, lovely back issues, also had a great display highlighting local and regional comic books creators. And this is where I pulled this issue off. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So it opens with a letter where the author and creative director is telling about the inspiration for this, like hearing all the folk tales from their Filipino grandparents and elders as they grew up. They themselves are, I believe they're US citizens, but they have been all over the world, and their family told them all these stories from Filipino folklore. Some are scary, some are not as scary. But he says it's very important to him, and that's why he wanted to write this book, because he wanted to regain that connection to that part of his heritage and share it with the rest of the world, because it's very beautiful and a way to remember his family. I will say something cool they did this book. They had some dialogue in Tagalog, or the Filipino language. And they consulted with native speakers to get that as close to the translation as they could. So a really cool comic done about a culture that honestly I don't know a lot about. So this was exciting to learn. It opens with Carmina and her dad when she's a little girl, and he's saying goodnight. And we see she's holding a pendant that appears to have some symbols on it. So we know that's going to be important. And her dad has a matching pendant. And they say goodnight. He goes to bed. And while he's sleeping, he's transported to the spirit world, where we find out his wife, Maria, Carmina's mother, has recently died. And he's seeing her and communicating with her. But then a demon tracks them down and unfortunately murders Carmina's father. And we find out that this demon has been gunning for their family for a long time, and we get the sense that it's going to come back for Carmina as well. And then the book jumps ahead to Carmina as a young adult, where she's had two tragedies back to back. Her mom died, then her dad died. She got put into foster care and is kind of living in the middle of nowhere somewhere in Central America, small town. Liberty, New Mexico specifically, so a little more southwest than I initially thought. But generic small town USA. And we find out that her life's kind of rough. She's got a job. she's working as a waitress. It's not that great, but it's not that bad. She's living with her boyfriend, and it seems like he might not be a very great guy. We'll see. And then Carmina is transported to the spirit world as well, where she enters through this giant tree, and she's like, whoa, this is really trippy. Like, am I dreaming? And then all of a sudden some spirit guides in the form of like little flames come to kind of introduce themselves to her and guide her. So she's going through this spirit world, and we see some creepy monsters, one that looks a lot like a Wendigo or the Demogorgon from Stranger Things, start chasing after her and trying to get her. And then a beautiful lady in a white dress appears, reaching out to Carmina to save her from this demon. And we find out that this lady might be her mother in the spirit form. There is apparently a Filipino story about deities that, a goddess that then takes on human form and can interact with mortals. So we are led to understand that this lady is the representation of that deity, and she has control over this part of the spirit world. And then Carmina wakes up, the story kind of ends, and we see that the demon that killed her father and her mother is still after her. And that's the end of issue 1. We do have some back matter. Her father Ernesto's journal before he died. He's writing about the stories from the folklore that he's been investigating and what he's learned about them and what it could mean, and who he thinks all these different spirits are. It was pretty cool. I liked that. It was a good way to recap what we've read, and a nice introduction to these stories and characters for those of us who did not grow up with them. And then it ends with another letter from the creative team. And I enjoyed this. It reminds me of early Supernatural episodes, like Supernatural, like season 1 through 4. And it was cool to read about a culture that, like I said, I don't know anything about. I don't think I know anyone who's Filipino American. So that was exciting, where it's like, okay, we're learning something. It was very well done. Again, nice quality paper, good quality art. Cover is nice and glossy. And it's an interesting story. I'd like to know more about where this goes, and about, does the demon get them? Do they win? And how is it all connected? Anyway, this was a cool pick. I encourage you to check out Dewata Comics or your local comics creator and look for a great find like Carmina Beginnings or something from your local comic book shop. That's my review. Check it out.
Cool. All right. A couple weeks ago on this very podcast, when we were doing a preview in the independent section, I came across a title that was called The Cola Pop Creamies. And I was very intrigued by the design and the title. And the description was pretty wild as well. And I did a little research on it. And I found out that Desmond Reed, who is the creator of this, has done a lot of web comics, basically, I think mostly distributed through his Instagram page. And I started flipping through, and I see in the designs the black and white work of these characters. And I'm like, right away, I'm just drawn in. I'm like, I got to figure out what this is about. And after contacting him and finding the publisher, which is Birdcage Bottom Books, and I found out on their website that he has 4, I don't want to call them pamphlets because there's, the awesome art and content in it, but it's a pamphlet size, trim, like a digest type of thing. And these self-published comics, and I found 4 books that he had put out, which I assume within the last 2 to 3 years. And so I bought from Birdcage Bottom directly, and I picked up Trash, Memories, Apples, and Lefty. These 4 here are mini comics that are basically, what I understand, are things that are available through his Instagram page as web comics. He did tell me that it would be easier to buy these than having to scroll down a couple years to get to the beginning of the story, because I was kind of asking if this was all some grand thing or if you can kind of jump in. and I was just very intrigued by altogether. Looking at the design of these characters, they are represented in color on these books, but within the comics that I'm talking about, they are under in black and white. And yeah, it just takes these characters who have this band called the Cola Pop Creamies, and these stories are the first two books of Trash and Memories are mostly one-page comics. There's a couple that are two-pagers, and as you get into Apples and Lefty, you start to get into longer form storytelling, still in the same format that I will show here, with just simple panel grids, nothing too out of the norm, but all very much keeping the same kind of aesthetic throughout the years. The design of the word balloons and the boxes and things like that, and the character designs, everything just Desmond Reed just has this a very specific style that I think is very attractive. That just, like I said, caught my eye when I just saw the design of these characters. Our Cola Pop Creamies band list here, we've got Henrietta Susan, Ralph Jonathan, Mona Gertrude, Gil Christopher, and Wallace TJ. And it didn't take long into this book that I was just laughing at every single page. It does surprise me with a couple of them that they are some very emotional ones that are kind of thrown in there. And so yeah, it did kind of catch me off guard a little bit. But it showed a really good balance. But here's the one I wanted to show off here. I think Apples is the first book. There's some superlatives of our cast members, as I mentioned, where Ralph Jonathan, he's most likely to succeed. Wallace TJ is the class clown. You got Mona Gertrude, who is most artistic. And then you have Gil Christopher, who is most changed. And then Henrietta Susan, her superlative is counted the votes. So just kind of coming off of that, like right off the bat, that's the first thing I read on there. And while it's it's a mixture of sad and hilarious at the same time, and it was quite the journey just kind of going through these designs and seeing how these web comics are developed. And it's one of those things where I have to now just do deeper dives on his Instagram and find out more. But what led me to all this was that initial previous catalog with the Cola Pop Creamies as a trade paperback graphic novel. Now, I have yet to find out if that graphic novel is all of this stuff or if it's all new material. That I don't know, but I like the stuff so much that I am going to just buy it anyways. And if it ends up being the same thing, then I'll just read it over again. If it ends up being new, then surprise, I've got more Cola Pop Creamy characters to dive into here. It is there's also a Kickstarter that Birdcage Bottom Books does that I feel is possibly an annual Kickstarter that they take some of their creators, whoever has their titles, they kind of do a general Kickstarter to fund all of these different books by these different creators with all the different tiers. And Cola Pop Creamies for the trade paperback is also available through there. So I am going to do it through their Kickstarter, and I think there are some cool like pin sets and goodies and things like that related to these characters. So I'm definitely going to jump onto that. This is just good comic strip webtoon fun, just unique designs and characters and goofiness. And I would say it's probably a PG-13 audience. There are some moments that get a little dark. I think there's a little language in here. I read these pretty quick, but I wasn't keeping aware on the reading level, but I would say PG-13 is probably what we're looking at. And then the one thing I wanted to highlight, the one, there's one of these books that doesn't, kind of fit the design and the color boasting of the other one. So I'm going to highlight Lefty here a little bit. And what's interesting about Lefty is that I'm just going to read it from the inside cover here. Lefty was written and drawn from March 2022 to May 2022 after an injury to my dominant hand. This is all written by the creator Desmond Reed. He continues, not wanting to stop making comics, I began to draw with my non-dominant hand and Lefty was born. Special thanks to Birdcage Bottom Books for releasing this weird little experiment. My left hand for illustrating the book, and my right hand for stepping up and lettering the book. Yeah, I thought that was unique. I didn't know that prior. I just did a blind purchase of all four of these books, knowing that I was drawn to those designs. And yeah, that made this book just even more of an interesting read. This from Desmond Reed, if you will. Here's just some examples of uh, artwork that he's done with his non-dominant hand, that he just basically forced himself to continue to draw. And yeah, I thought it's an excellent job. This story is focusing on one of the characters, so this is one of those that this entire story is really concentrated on one of our characters, whereas the other books are more single page kind of adventures and stories and kind of joke setup gag type of thing. So yeah, this was interesting. I like this design. I encourage all this kind of creativity. I love the getting just the little comics, the little, even in trim size, but like these independent comics, they're just people that are out there just doing their thing. They have their style, they're telling their story. So yeah, I'm going to check out the Birdcage Bottom Books on Kickstarter to pledge for the Cola Pop Creamies graphic novel edition, and I'll probably return to talk about it here on this podcast. But yeah, Desmond Reed, he's got a bunch of other daily uh, comic strips that he keeps putting up on his Instagram page. So I got to start going there, do a deep dive, and just scroll to the bottom of some of these other stories that he continues to make. So this is great stuff. So Desmond Reed comics from Birdcage Bottom Books. And then they gave me a couple goodies too, with some bookmarks and little prints. That was a fun little surprise within the catalog. So yeah, I think I found myself a new creator that I'm a big fan of in Desmond Reed. All right. And I believe that was everything for the other club members. So I'm going to pull out one more book. This show would be slightly smaller, so I'm going to add one more to the list. This is something I talked about in previews. We have Bigfoot and Nessie, the art of getting noticed. Meet Bigfoot and Nessie. Yes, that Bigfoot and Nessie. Only, well, things are a little complicated right now. Bigfoot is having trouble fitting in with his family. He can never quite manage to get himself into the picture, much to the disappointment of his mom, dad, and sister, who always want to be in the spotlight. When he meets Nessie, who's equally desperate to get away from the cameras, he begins to ask himself the ultimate question: what's the price of fame, after all? This is Big Hearted and Clever, The Art of Getting Noticed by Chelsea M. Campbell and Laura Knetzker invites us to explore our most tender selves through friendship and creativity and have quite a bit of fun in between. This is 100% an all ages book. I just love this idea of Bigfoot and Nessie kind of becoming friends, and the art of getting noticed. It's such an attractive cover and title. Opening page has them just sitting around a campfire, just being quick friends. This story, I didn't know much about it prior to just that setup, and going into it, it became equal parts funny and equal parts sad in the fact that this family of Bigfoot, which their last name is, I think it's Little Feet, or Little Toe. Little Toe, I think, is their last name. So his name is Bigfoot Little Toe, the third, actually. So the opening page gives a little example of the inside of their house, where they're proud of all of these Bigfoot sightings that have happened throughout the world. That includes them, their family. They're so proud every time that they happen to get noticed when they're out there. And it looks like most of these photos are pretty much in focus. A lot of times, any Sasquatches, they're not in focus too much. But this whole family is around the table, and we find out that Bigfoot, the young son here, is bummed because he never gets noticed. The concept is hilarious, and then the execution is really sad, and it still keeps it fun for kids reading, but you really start to feel for this Bigfoot here. So I'll just explain kind of one of them here, where he's kind of hanging out in the bushes here, and he sees that there's some campers showing off a big fish that they caught. And as the camera flashes, it actually kind of surprises the Bigfoot and kind of falls back and falls into the trees and basically doesn't even get noticed. And there's several scenes like this of attempts of this character going out there and just being like, well, okay, there's a group of people. I'm going to jump into the scene. They're going to see me. They're either going to get scared. They're going to take a pictures. I'm going to get noticed. And something always foils that plan, leaving the Bigfoot to never be noticed and the people just walking off, oblivious to the fact that there is a cryptid creature right there among them. So the setup is quite brilliant, if you ask me. And the rest of the story kicks in is when Nessie comes into the picture. Nessie is a character who is basically on vacation, and this is the panel that I'm glad I just flipped to because it is probably my favorite panel. Nessie is explaining throughout the story how they basically are trying to get away from the celebrity fame. Nessie's family, everyone's always out to find and search the Loch Ness monster and all that stuff. And Nessie doesn't want anything of it. Nessie just wants a day to themselves and kind of has a bandana, sunglasses, and disguise, and just goes out into the woods and is camping, and that's where they end up finding Bigfoot. But Nessie has this line here, pulling down the shades and just going, "Getting noticed is overrated." That panel just made me laugh, and I would buy that as a giant poster print in itself. This is a beautiful story, a lot of fun stuff. Nessie is on a adventure of trying to boost up the spirits of Bigfoot. I don't want to talk about what actually happens in the book, so I will explain that Bigfoot, since Bigfoot is feeling left out in every aspect of trying to get noticed, he needs to find other things to be good at, some things that he can excel at, and Nessie basically helps bring that out of him. This is just really cool and beautiful and unexpected. I didn't expect to I expected to enjoy it just for what it is here, but it was a real touching story that I will continue to hold near and dear into my collection. So yeah, this is Bigfoot and Nessie, The Art of Getting Noticed. All right. And that is going to do it for our weekly reviews, but we do have one more segment, and we are going to jump over to the news. And unfortunately, for all the YouTube people that are currently watching this, they don't get to hear the pre-recorded voice of David going, "And now the news," with the little jingle. But don't worry, because people on iTunes can't hear it either, because these new episodes aren't uploading at the time of the YouTube. So YouTube, you are winning out, not only in visuals, but also just as the podcast in general. All right, hitting the old save button. And since I've been doing a lot of talking, when I kick it off, I will start off with Katie. So just so that you are ready with Marvel, but
Alrighty.
I will throw it to you once we get recording audio again. All right. We are recording. All right, here we go. Welcome to the previews preview. This is part 1 of 2. And our next episode, we will do our giant previews catalog that covers the independent publishers, the products, the collectibles, the merchandise, the apparel, all of that fun stuff. But this week, we're going to concentrate on the March catalogs for Marvel and DC for products coming out in May and beyond. And this is a selection of things that we are looking forward to. I will hand it over to Katie. What's your first pick from Marvel?
All right. Hello. My first pick is Groot from Marvel by Dan Abnett, Damian Cossiero, and Lee Garbett. I love Groot. Baby Groot, Big Groot, all the Groots, Old Man Groot. So I was very happy to see that we were getting another Groot miniseries. Right when I started reading comics, there was an I Am Groot miniseries. If you haven't read that, that was pretty fun. Recommend that as well. But I was really excited to see this. And then Dan Abnett is a very good writer all around. He and oh shoot, Abnett and Lenning are the people who wrote the Guardians of the Galaxy comics that inspired the movie. So seeing him on this title was pretty cool and gives me high hopes for this. Anyway, we have Groot on May 3rd, 2023 on for $5. Check it out.
Yeah, and there was one cover because this definitely is going to be on my pull list. And Peach Momoko has just been an excellent cover artist and storyteller all around. And I saw this that she had posted this a while back, so I was excited to see that it's a cover. Such
Ooh.
an adorable little Groot just hanging out there. Just yeah, I'm excited for that. All right, and that'll be perfect timing because we will have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 coming out at the beginning of May. So, great time to celebrate Guardians. Let's jump over to Jim. Any picks from Marvel?
I actually do have a couple of picks from Marvel this time. The Avengers title is restarting with a brand new #1 and a few changes to the lineup of who is in the Avengers. And I am going to jump back into the Avengers. I think notably, it looks like Vision, Wanda, and Sam are joining the team. I don't know if Sam is going to be. I don't know enough about the character in the comics. If that is his Falcon costume or if that is his Captain America costume, what role he will be playing on the team, but it's going to be interesting to see a new lineup in that comic.
Yes, that is on my list as well. I'm excited to check that out. So, all right. So I got to go past that one to pick my first Marvel pick here. Silk. I am always championing Silk, Cindy Moon from the Spider-Verse universe of storytelling. A new #1 issue. They found a really good method for Silk rather than committing to an ongoing series and then all of a sudden having it the rug pulled out underneath them and having it end like at an issue 8 or an issue 17. This is, I think, the third round of annual 5-issue miniseries for Silk. And Emily Kim, that is a recognizable name. I'm pretty sure they were on the last book, if not the last two. But Silk swings back into the Spider-Verse. There's something rotten in Los Angeles, and ace detective Cindy Moon is on the case. Wait, that can't be right. In this mind-bending new series, Cindy will face old foes and never-before-seen dangers that will take her to the breaking point. Yeah, this is just awesome, and I'm pretty sure. Oh, there's a great Peach Momoko for that one as well. But Silk is one of those characters that is an immediately constant pull list choice of mine. So that is Silk #1 of 5. Katie?
All right. In our latest Epic Collection entry, we have Star Wars Tales of the Jedi Volume 3. This is peak 90s Star Wars fans of Exar Kun and Ulic Keldroma. You're definitely going to want to grab this book. It is covering Tales of the Jedi, Dark Lords of the Sith War, Redemption, and then a few bonus materials from the Star Wars Tales. It's in shops in July, and it's going to cost you $45. Check out this and other Star Wars Epic collections.
All right, Jim.
I missed this last month because this is the first time I've actually gotten a paper copy of the Marvel catalog. So this is actually issue #2, but I have gone back and requested issue #1, Planet of the Apes. This is a continuation of the latest movie series. And I really enjoyed those movies, and I am looking forward to reading this new comic series as well.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, it's recent news that with Disney acquiring the 20th Century Fox properties, and we've seen, the Predator and Aliens, we've seen them represented in Marvel Comics, and now with Planet of the Apes, it sounds like it's this whole separate imprint that they're really going full throttle in with these properties. And much like when they, got the Star Wars licensing back, Star Wars comics have just been so top notch, and they just have, their Marvel pool of writers for these other properties outside of the Marvel universe, and yeah, they just been just firing on all cylinders and doing a great job with that stuff. Cool, cool. All right. One thing here, I'm not currently reading the Fantastic Four after Dan Slott's several year run. I usually, we'll find some times to jump in and out of certain books. But I'm always a sucker for the big anniversary issues because we have issue number 700 that is coming. Like I said, I haven't been reading. This is number 7 of the current story arc. So yeah, we have the 7 and 700 all roped into the same issue. But yeah, I'm always a sucker for the oversized celebrations, and maybe it'll be an issue that will make me pick up issue number 8. So yeah, that is Fantastic Four issue number 7 or issue number 700 for the legacy numbering. All right, Katie.
Okay, my last pick for Marvel is Lando. This is a Return of the Jedi commemorative one-shot. Now, at first I thought they were just reprinting some existing Lando stories, but no, it looks like we're going to get a new story with Lando Calrissian and Chewbacca. And I think that's pretty cool. Of course, it's coming out in time for Star Wars Day on May 3rd for $5. So, like I said, there's 2 other Lando miniseries. The first one by Charles Soule is one of my favorite Star Wars comics, and one that I would recommend without hesitation. The second one came out around the time of Solo, so if you like that movie, you might want to pick up that miniseries. It's not on my must read, but if you're a completionist, or like I said, if you're a big fan of Solo and the younger version of Lando, you might want to pick that up as well. And I'm very much looking forward to this. And it sounds like some other one-shots with characters from Return of the Jedi to celebrate 40 years. Can't believe it. We have Lando number 1 out May 3rd for $5.
Cool. All right, Jim.
I have just 2 more. I'm going to put them together because they are both facsimile editions, and one is Avengers number 1, and the other one is Iron Man number 1. And they both appear on page 7 of the catalog, and you get brand new printings of that original story. If you haven't read them before, this is a great time to see where these characters and these teams came from. $3.99 each.
Cool, cool, cool. All right. One thing I was going to try to find an example, but I think it's buried away in a collection somewhere. Marvel Studios has these art of hardcover editions for all the Marvel Studios properties, the movies, and now the television programs and Disney Plus. They do these cool art books that are just kind of go through, have gorgeous photos, behind the scenes, interviews, and just if you like a certain project, then it just gives you all of essentially the Blu-ray extras in an awesome art book. Now, I could fall down the rabbit hole and buy pretty much all of those because I'm a big fan of everything from the MCU, but I made a decision early on, being I don't need any of these books because it's a dangerous path to fall down. Until WandaVision happened, and I think I talked about that on this very podcast, and I absolutely love that because that's my favorite project. But here we go, Werewolf by Night, the Disney Plus special that came out last October, has an Art of Special hardcover as well, which that is the 1 hour special, mostly in black and white, that introduced Elsa Bloodstone into the MCU. It also introduced Man-Thing into the MCU, something that I've been very, very much anticipating. And it was just an awesome one-off thing if you've never seen it. You don't need to have any MCU knowledge. It's a great 1 hour creature feature of kind of a throwback to the old black and white horror movies and monster movies and stuff like that. And it happens to exist within the MCU. And yeah, so they have the Art of edition in this. And because that was so unique, that special presentation in Disney Plus, that was so unique of an entry into the MCU, that I think, much like WandaVision, that's where I think these art books are definitely going to be a benefit to purchase. So it doesn't come out till next October. Great for Halloween to revisit the special again, as well as the book. But yeah, the Art of the Werewolf by Night. Yeah, that I was so excited to see that. So that is definitely on my list. 200 pages of greatness. All right, Katie was wrapped up, and Jim, do you have one more?
I do not.
Okay, then I think I am done as well. I'm just gonna flip through the end here to see if there is anything collection wise that caught my eye, but I think we are good to go. So we will start with you, Jim, though. If you want to jump over to this DC catalog, what you got over at DC?
Well, I don't have that catalog yet because mine is delayed. Apparently, they didn't get out in time for my shipment. But I do have last month's, and since I wasn't here when we covered it, I would like to mention a couple of things that are coming in June. So we're in basically the same time frame, and that I am excited for because I've been holding off on reading them until this point, and that is all the stuff for the Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. They are all coming out in collected trade paperbacks. There are four of them. There is the story Dark Crisis on an Infinite Earth, which is the main title. There is Tales from the Dark Crisis, which comes from many different titles assembled together. There is Dark Crisis, World Without a Justice League. Again, they collect stories from many different titles. And finally, there is Dark Crisis, Young Justice. And those were all published in the Young Justice title as a separate book. So, four miniseries collected into four trade paperbacks, all coming out in June. They all released on June 20th, except for Dark Crisis, Young Justice, which comes out a week earlier on the 13th. I don't know that I'll necessarily go out and buy all of them in the first month, but I will be getting them all eventually.
There you go. Cool, cool. All right. Over at DC, I don't have too many new picks, but I will highlight. Let's see. Oh yeah, the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles omnibus. I've talked about, I think, each round of the Turtles and Batman stories. But this is going to be 576 pages. New York City's Heroes in a Half Shell and Gotham's Cape Crusader join forces against their greatest enemies, Krang, the Shredder, the Joker, and more, in a trio of tales that mash up to the dimensions of the Turtles and Batman, putting all of the reality in jeopardy. This massive omnibus collects Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 1 through 6, Batman Ninja Turtles 2, number 1 through 6, Batman Ninja Turtles 3, number 1 through 6, plus hundreds of pages of behind-the-scenes material from artist Freddie E. Williams II, and a brand new introduction by Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles co-creator Kevin Eastman. Yeah, that's awesome. I have all of those, but yeah, it's gonna be one of those that when I'm down to the final checkout to see if that one is added or removed to my list, just for the sake of having it all in one gorgeous collection. Plus, that promise of hundreds of pages of behind the scenes. That's quite awesome. So yeah, that is Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Omnibus. Those worlds clash together so perfectly that I hope they do more. And there is an animated movie out there too that's a ton of fun too. So if you like Batman, if you like Ninja Turtles, that's a great way to get all those stories. All right, jump over to Katie. Anything from DC?
Sure, I have just one this time. So from the White Knight universe, we have Batman White Knight presents Generation Joker. This looks like it's going to be about Jack and Harley's twins when they are a little bit older. Don't want to read too much more than that because I don't want to spoil it. Sean Murphy is overseeing everything as the story director, but it's written by Katana Collins and Clay McCormack. Sean is also doing the cover art. The entire White Knight universe has been excellent. I do recommend that quite a bit. The first 3 trades are out, and it looks like Batman Beyond the White Knight is currently ongoing, but I'm excited for this next one. It's going to be on sale on May 9th, and it's going to cost $5 for issue number 1 of 6. My pick is Batman White Knight Presents Generation Joker. Check it out.
Cool. Jim, anything more to highlight from that catalog, or is that good?
I just want to add to Katie
Okay.
that the trade paperback for the Batman Beyond the White Knight is listed in the previous catalog, the one that I have here.
Oh, thank you. I was just on Amazon and I'm like, oh, they're not showing it to me. I will have to check that out. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. But no, I have nothing else to list at this moment.
Okay, and the last thing for me here is Peacemaker Tries Hard number 1. The reason I'm highlighting this is because it is written by Kyle Starks. Kyle Starks, who is an awesome writer and artist. He does have Steve Pugh as the artist for this book. But the reason I bring this up is because it's a perfect time to show off a recent Kyle Starks commission that I got through his website. Not too many people are out there drawing Dawn Greenwood from my favorite Silver Surfer run. So I have a Kyle Starks Dawn Greenwood sketch right there. And she's exactly what I would expect out of a Kyle Starks drawing. That was awesome. It was exciting to see that. Sometimes artists will post some of the stuff on their pages, and sometimes you're like, hey, that's the one I ordered. I had not seen this one, so it was an awesome reveal once I pulled it out of the envelope. So yeah, that was a pleasant surprise right there. So Kyle Starks, great artist, but he's also using his writing chops over on Peacemaker Tries Hard number 1, which I guarantee will be Kirby, who is one of our club members here. That's probably his favorite character, I think, in all of comic books. I think you can go back to any episode of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club, as well as his podcast, Under the Cowl of MS, and you'll find him just constantly talking about how much he loves the Peacemaker character. So I can guarantee he's going to buy all these covers multiple times over, because if anything is true out there in this world, is that Kirby loves Peacemaker. You're welcome, Kirby. All right, so yeah, that does it for my DC catalog. Katie, was that it for you, I think? And
yes, it was.
And that was it for Jim. So we are going to wrap this up. We can't cover everything in these catalogs, so we highly recommend that you ask for the catalogs at your local comic shop. Check your online retailers, get your pre-orders out there. Very important, not only for your stores, but also the publishers and the creators, to let them know the books that you want, and make sure that you get them pre-ordered, so they are waiting for you, whether at the mailbox or at your comic shop. So that's the Marvel and DC catalogs. Next time we do an episode, we are going to do the giant independent catalog, and we'll talk about all of our picks in that episode. Do some plugs here as we wrap up the show. CrimsonCowl.com. CrimsonCowl.com is the one-stop shop to find out everything about Crimson Cowl Media, which also is the exclusive home for webcomics that you cannot get anywhere else. We have Tales from the North, a free ongoing anthology series that's created by David Gloyd II. It is a dark fantasy comic based on the setting of his RPG campaigns. Chapters 1 and 2 are available now, as well as a winter holiday special. So check out the club members from this very podcast went off and made comics. That's only on crimsoncowl.com. If you want to email us letters page questions, that's where we do fun questions and have everybody answer them. Highly encourage anybody that is listening or watching to this to send an email to crimsoncowlcomicclub@yahoo.com and send us, it could be a thoughtful question about comics or characters, it could be a wacky scenario, what if kind of question, but send them over at crimsoncowlcomicclub@yahoo.com. We have the YouTube page, which is exclusively the one-stop shop to get this very podcast because our audio isn't uploading at the current moment. But Crimson Cowl Comic Club on YouTube, check that out. We'll have an upcoming Hellboy book club series that will be video only, regardless. So that one will be coming in the next couple weeks as well. And then we have the Crimson Cowl, which is all one word, on Instagram. Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes, because it's good to subscribe just so that if an episode does pop up, you're not going to miss it. Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes. Make sure to like and subscribe and rate and review. All of that stuff helps out the podcast. In the last couple months here, we've had some special guests, and we are hoping to get many more as the year goes on. But Troy Dungaro was on recently, tunesbytroy.com. That's tunes with a Z. Then we had Matt Fife from Happy Astronaut, a book he co-created with Matt Rogers, happyastronautcomic.gumroad.com, and also stay tuned for this summer's previews. We're going to talk about on this show and have Matt back. But Happy Astronaut's going to be showing in that giant catalog somewhere within those pages. And then check out Kirby's spinoff podcast, which is Under the Cowl of MS. It's him talking about living with MS, as well as throwing in comic book reviews. He does YouTube unpacking videos. If he gets things from creators, he's showing them all off there. There's a lot of content that's coming out of Under the Cowl of MS. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to their podcast on YouTube to get so much content that they're always pouring out. And then I myself have a hobby artist account over at Facebook and Instagram, Anthony Latch. That's LAATSCH. I just draw for fun, and if you want to see some of that stuff, you can follow those pages. That is going to do it for this episode. We crammed a lot of goodness into a smaller episode here. And yeah, so that is going to do it. I think there's only one thing left to do, and that is to say this part. This whole time, I've enjoyed fishing and chasing radioactive frogs and secretly painting silly faces on rocks.
I want to put on my boogie shoes and just boogie with you.
I'm working on my overconfidence badge.
I am Groot, which translates for to be continued.
Thank you, Slimer.